Thank you very much. It is a pleasure, it's an honour to be here in Canada at this time. It's a very important time, I think, to be bringing the message from Ireland to you all on this visit, for we are living in changed and changing times. As a little bit of an overview as to where we are presently, we have just emerged from a historic election in the north of Ireland, which for the first time ever returned my party, Sinn Féin, as the largest party in the devolved administration. A truly significant result as we emerged 100 years from the partition of Ireland. Such a result was never designed to be allowed to happen, but it is a reflection, I think, of where politics and society is, particularly in the north of Ireland, that Michelle O'Neill is now the First Minister designate. And of course, I have to use the term designate because we do not have a functioning assembly or executive at present. And whilst I may be able to expand on this a little bit more with some questions, I think the dysfunction that we still are bearing the brunt of can be rooted back in the 2016 referendum on Brexit. For since that time, we had a British government that always, I felt, looked at the Good Friday Agreement as an inconvenient truth, as an irritant. And thanks to the international friends and support that the Good Friday Agreement enjoys, it was made very clear that there could be no undermining of that historic peace agreement. There could be no return to the hard border on the island of Ireland, and the peace that so many people worked hard for to achieve and implement would not allowed, should not and would not be allowed to damage or undermine the success and progress we've had in Ireland. So we had an agreement between the British government and the European Union. That agreement was the protocol, a protocol which, when I talk to my House of Commons colleagues in the Scottish National Party or other political parties, is truly the envy of so many other jurisdictions. For without having to pay a single penny, we have market access into the British internal market and access to the European Union market of over 500 million people, something which provides such a small jurisdiction with unparalleled and unrivalled potential. But one particular party in the north of Ireland has said that this undermines and damages the constitutional arrangement, indeed that they would claim that it makes them less British, a claim rejected by our High Court and Court of Appeal in Belfast. But nonetheless, this is a position which the British government has very cynically indulged and indeed rewarded. So we have had many examples of dysfunction from Westminster. We are now on to the latest Prime Minister, Liz Truss, and the initial mood music does seem to reflect a willingness to agree a negotiated settlement. And that, I can say with authority, is what the majority of people want on the island of Ireland. We want to give our business community the certainty and the clarity and the space to prosper under what is now a fundamental market and trading shift. But the people that I speak to, certainly in advance of the last election, were concerned with two things: the state of our health service and the cost of living crisis, which seems to be compounded on a weekly and sometimes a daily basis. It certainly feels like. People want their political parties and leaders to be working together. They want them to be round the executive table in Belfast, making decisions that can provide mitigations for the hurt and the pain that people are currently suffering. And indeed, that is a phenomenon that is not exclusive to the people on the island of Ireland. So I am here with a very clear message for our friends in Canada, and that is, it is as important now as it has ever been to respect and cherish and celebrate and support the Good Friday Agreement. We are dealing with the British government through numerous examples that seems to have very little respect for international law or indeed international agreements. There is now a movement on the island of Ireland where people look at the dysfunction and the drama from Westminster and they are asking themselves a very simple question: is there something better? And of course, the Good Friday Agreement provides us with that something better, and that is the peaceful pathway to constitutional change on the island of Ireland. This is a conversation that is taking place and gathering pace in a way in which I think I could be allowed to say without contradiction has never, ever happened before in any of our lives. And it is now the responsible thing to do to acknowledge that that conversation has taken place at an advanced level and inform that debate, to not repeat the mistakes of Brexit, where a huge change in their constitution and arrangements with the European Union was predicated upon a lie painted on the side of a double-decker bus, or misinformation, or the avoidance of facts like the Good Friday Agreement. There are those who want to know what it will mean for the health service, what it will mean for their tax, their pension, what it will mean for the education system. And that is why we have consistently called on the Irish government to convene a citizens' assembly, so that the debate can be better informed. Because make no mistake about it, the questions are coming. They will be getting put to the people of Ireland, I would say at some time within the next 5 years. And what we can do is recognise the multiple indicators of change that are all around us and continue to emerge. And we can then take that and help plan for change, or we can ignore it and risk repeating the same chaos that Brexit Britain spectacularly did from 2016 onwards. So that is our message. I think it's very important that our Canadian friends, a country that has invested so much, provided us with people like General John de Chastelain and former Supreme Court jurist Peter Corey, provided us with the calibre of those people at important times in our peace process. I am again asking the Canadian people and their political representatives to support us at this time also. Thank you very much.
And we'll now take questions, starting with questions in the room. Nous allons commencer avec les questions dans la salle. Is there questions in the room? Susan, you can go ahead.
Hello, Mr. Finucane. Hope I'm pronouncing your name right.
You are indeed, yes.
Okay, I am with the Catholic Register newspaper in Toronto. And so you're hoping for constitutional change, which would be, well, you would need a referendum to do that. And you're hoping for it 5 years down the line, all right? So there's always been a divide between Catholics and Protestants on this issue that you are promoting your cause. How, now Ireland, as I understand, is no longer a strictly devout Catholic country. It's become a lot more secular. You've invited a lot of refugees, multicultural population. How do you think this is going to affect the vote if it comes about, the referendum?
Yes, what I would say to that, and we recently had the publication of the census results in the north of Ireland, and I will preface my remarks on that by making it very clear that I would not crudely attach voting intentions onto somebody's religion. So I think we can take that as a given. But what I would say, again, 100 years from partition, what we saw in the census results that were published in the past month or two, that was never designed to be allowed to happen, ever. And what I would say is that when you look at that and marry that beside election results over the past 5 or 6 years, what you see is a previous unionist majority that has now disappeared, and I would respectfully say will never return. In my own election in 2019, excuse me, unionism was returned to Westminster in a minority for the first time in their history. And there are those who I speak with, whether they are Protestants or whether they are those that were brought up in a unionist tradition, who look to London, look to England, look to their European identity, which they cherished, which has now been taken away from them in a very undemocratic manner. And they are very much part of the conversation. And I'll give you an example on this. About 2 weeks ago at the Three Arena in Dublin, there was a conference organised by a civic group called Ireland's Future that's non-party politically aligned and has a composition of members which would reflect all aspects of Irish society. And we heard from different people that day. We heard from young people and indeed people from a business and political background who were unionists, who were now very much saying they want to be part of this conversation. And there is a bloc in the middle who may not have much gra, as we say back home, much love for the union in London, but they may not have made their mind up yet. And they want to know exactly what this conversation is. They want it to be resourced and they want it to be informed and they want the discourse to be sensitive. And that is essentially what we are calling for. We are not calling for a border poll to be held tomorrow morning or indeed next year. because we need to have the debate informed and grasped by an Irish government so that the powers and the levers that only a government have hands on are utilised to bring this debate to the next level. Make no mistake about it, this conversation has taken place in rural Ireland as to what it means for farming. It's taken place in our health sector as to what it would mean for the health service. It's taken place amongst academia, amongst political parties, amongst economists, amongst our young who are looking at an Ireland and sometimes realising that their best chance of success is to get on a plane or get on a boat and move. We need to make sure that this is about creating something better and something different. Okay.
One more. All right. As in the past, anyway, there's been a sort of fear that Catholic, if this happens, the Union of Ireland, Catholic jackboots will be all over Protestants and all over. Do you think there is a kind of decline of that feeling? Are people no longer worried about that, or are they worried about it?
I don't think I don't think it's a concern if it exists that has much substance or evidence that would support it. But that said, I wouldn't dismiss that fear if somebody was raising it. You touched on it in your first question that the south of Ireland is a very different country now. It's much more secular. I think it's fair to say that when the island was partitioned, it created two very right-wing conservative states. And over the course of the last number of decades, we've heard some horrific stories about what that meant for people north and south of the border. What I would say is that the beauty of one of the many beauties of the Good Friday Agreement is that it is a document that is not a fixed point of time, but what underpins the Good Friday Agreement is the human rights structure, is the parity of esteem, is the equality language that runs right through it. In the event of constitutional change on the island of Ireland, that would continue. So whether you are British, whether you are Irish, or whether you are one of the many, many thousands of people who have moved to Ireland and now call it home, your rights would continue to be protected. And that is something that I would advocate and fight for because it is fundamentally important if we are serious about reconciliation and serious about creating something new and something much better.